be changing these doors that are gray to a wood finish look. I've loved the gray doors, but I'd like to have a little bit warmer look. And I'm not going to be doing both sides of the door initially, because the inside doors of my bedrooms, the bathrooms, the inside have this color gray, and it works great. And both sides of the door don't have to match. But I am going to have to do the edge of the door and the full back side of this. This is the side of the door I'm not going to be painting. I'm not going to be staining. Now, if I'm just painting, I wouldn't take these knobs off. I would tape around the knob, laying it flat, the tape flat on here. But because I need to go down these edges and I need to get a really good, clear finished faux finish, I have to take these off. If I was just painting the door, I don't take them off. But I have the tape on here because I have to do both edges because of how this door opens and what you see. So I have put green frog tape on the back to protect it from coming around on this side. If eventually I decide to do this side in a wood tone too, it's not an issue, but right now I know I'm not planning to do that. So I want to protect this. This one I will take out because if you're trying to bring a faux grain down this, it's going to bump around this and it's going to be a mess. It's not going to look professional. It's going to look hodgepodge. So that's why that's coming out. I am going to show you how, if you are painting a door and you have hinges and you haven't taken them off, which is so much easier to paint these hanging in place or stain them in place. But the way our doors are situated in the house, I can't get a good camera angle to let you see what's actually happening. If you're painting the door, you want to block off the hinge like this, flat against there. If you're painting the hinges, you want to go the other way and block this off to give you a good clean finish on your hinge and a good clean line on your door. This has a lot of irregularity on the edge of there, which made it hard to do. You also want to tape off the inside of your hinge for when you are doing the inside of the door. So we're going to move the camera so that you can see how I cut that with an X-Acto knife to make it easier to deal with. I've already cut this edge. You just want to feel, well, my X-Acto knife got loose. You want to feel the edge of that metal, and you want the knife to go in there and now as I'm bringing stain and all over this, I'm going to get a good straight line of grain. This will be protected, and all I'll have to do is pull it off and it'll be ready to hang again. Or just pull it off and it would be ready to go if your door is hanging in place. Because the door had had multiple layers of paint from the previous owner, then I put 2 layers of 1 part weathervane and 2 parts cashmere to get this color. This has, where the knob is off, it's got some raised paint. So I've got to get that smooth. I'm using 220 grit. And I'm following the grain pattern that's in this. I don't want to get cut marks going the other way. That's good and smooth. So now I'm going to do a wipe down on this door with the deglosser. And when you're using these wipes, scrub. Don't just do a light wipe. You should be able to hear me scrubbing on this. And because I'm doing the sides, don't forget to do those. Because I want a neutral to warm tone on my door, I can't start with stain on this. And stain over this gray is going to be really hard anyway, unless you're wanting a gray stain. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply a coat of Tapestry. This has been stirred off camera. And for what I'm going to be doing, one coat should be enough of this. Follow the grain. There's some bubbles forming, and that's okay. I'm barely touching to pop bubbles that have formed. That's why you need really good light to see where those last bubbles are. And because I'm going to be putting a graining effect on this, one coat of this should be plenty for what I want to do, and actually add a little bit more depth and texture to the final finish. And I'm going to finish this off camera, let it dry, and come back and show you the next steps. This one coat of Tapestry has dried for 48 hours. You really do need to take that wait time before you put anything on top of it, whether it's one of the antiquing gels like vintage brown or the whitewash that you're trying to change a color. It can reactivate this bottom first coat of paint, and you can wind up having it coming loose, or if you have to rub or spray to get off what you're putting on there, it can lift this paint. If you wait the 48 hours, you're not going to have that headache. I have two chip brushes because I'm going to be applying toasted oak and tobacco. This particular brush is one of my older brushes, and it's a lot scruffier on the end. So it's going to do much better for the tobacco that I'm going to be putting over the toasted oak. You also have a small container of mineral spirits handy, because I've got another brush that I'm going to do additional blending with if I need to. And it's also going to let me brush my bristles out as I change stain colors onto a paper towel so that the brush doesn't get all gunked up and dried with stain, because this, the gel stain dries pretty quickly. I did not want a full coat of paint on this door because it's not needed. The layering of stain that I'm going to do is going to hide the fact that this isn't a full coat of paint, and it's going to, the little bits of light and dark that you can see up close here on it is actually going to help the graining effect. This door had some fake grain in it. It's not a wood door, so I couldn't strip it back. But it's had lots of coats of paint on it, so the grain is not fully intact everywhere from other people's painting before we bought the house. But I did not want to sand these doors down. I just want to go ahead and work on it and get the faux finish. I'm putting a little bit of stain out onto my plate so that I can keep my can closed, so that I don't start getting a skin on the top of my can of stain. The doors, a big door like this or a cabinet door, I do the same way. It helps to help you not have places where that you smear your finish that you're adding on here. And I'm also not trying to get a full coat of the stain on here. I want a streakiness to it. I've kind of got it at a 45, to try to come across these areas. You want to follow the grain. It's okay that I've got a little bit down onto that. The chip brush gives me some straggly lines, and I beat the fire out of that brush on my hand before I started to get out any loose bristles. This curve is matching this board, so I need my brush strokes to go that direction. These, the grain all goes the same way, coming all the way down this. So you can turn the brush endwise so that you get more of those streaky lines in this. Avoid pulling your brush over that. That's why I am keeping it pretty much perpendicular to the surface. And before you try this on a door or a cabinet, please do it on a board, do it on a spare cabinet that you get from Habitat or some Goodwill someplace else, because there is a learning curve with this. If you see that you've gone the wrong direction on it, go ahead and grab it right then. My brush is very lightly touching this surface so that I get the striations. This is exactly the same process if you have a smooth finish door too that has no graining in it. The steps are exactly the same. Because what you're doing with the brush is the majority where you're getting the look. And with the second brush, I'm going to start putting on tobacco, but I really have to be careful how much I get on my brush. The last thing I'm going to do is take a brush with just a little bit of mineral spirits. I'm getting into the bristles, pouncing onto here. And use it to blend this out very similarly to how I used water with the antiquing gels. You know when you're done, when you get back from it and it's not blotchy. And once this completely dries, it's going to get one more step added to it. It's going to dry for 24 hours, and then I'm going to apply a very thin coat of tobacco over the top of the whole thing, which will blend all of this out and bring it back to an even more natural step. It's not a quick 5-minute job to get this wood look, but in my opinion, it's worth the effort. I missed a spot over here. I only have like a 1/4 of an inch of mineral spirits in the bottom of this cup so that I don't accidentally put too much mineral spirits on it. You cannot do the entire door with one coat and come back and put the next coat on because you can't get any blending, and if you just mix tobacco and toasted oak together, you just get a muddy color. It doesn't help you at all. So the layering is what has to be done. And the last thing I'm going to do with this brush is I'm going to rub it onto this paper towel with the mineral spirits so it's not gunked up when I come back to do this section, because I'm going to start on this side of the door next. To give yourself a little bit more work time with this, you can mix a little bit of the mineral spirits into small amounts of the stain, but you really have to be careful because it becomes really hard to create the graining if you're not used to doing it. And another thing you have to pay attention to is where the grain is. If you have a smooth door, get a picture so that you can see how these panels fit together, because you need the lines to go exactly into these seams, just like wood grain would do on a door that was made out of wood. And even though I'm not to this right here yet, I'm going to pull my brush straight down on that seam so that the line is straight the way it should be. And that's what's going to happen to the rest of this door. Then I'm going to let it dry. And like I said, I'm going to add a coat of tobacco over the entire thing. Once I had done the whole layer of, in effect, dry brushing the tobacco over this, I stepped back and I looked for areas that there was too much light area in it, and I went back in those areas and added more brown to even it out. Right now I know it looks really splotchy, but this is where this final coat that I'm going to put on does the magic, just like in the video where I squirted water on the water-based antiquing gels and the magic happened, that it went from streaky to a beautiful finish. That's what's going to happen with this. I was originally going to use tobacco over this, and if you did, it would just simply even this out and come to a browner tone like these darker areas here. For my house and my floor, I need it to be the lighter tone. So I experimented on the edge of the door here to see whether toasted oak over this was going to be the color I wanted, or if I wanted tobacco. And it worked out that toasted oak is blending it exactly the way I want for the color I want. That's another reason why you want to practice on something else. You want to layer your stains and see which way gives me the color that I want for my space. I also am not working directly out of the can. I am using an HTP project or stain brush. I put a little bit of stain on my plate. I don't like my can of stain drying out, which it will do if you leave it open. So I put some on the plate because I know I'm not going to paint this on like a layer of paint. I'm going to have very little on there and just smooth out an even coat on this, which is what you're about to see me do. Just like if I'm dry brushing, I'm only putting a little bit of stain in this. I don't want it to go on like a coat of paint. Need a paper towel, please, just to wipe that off. I don't want it to get too thick when I'm adding the coat here, so I can take a paper towel and immediately wipe it off and continue working on this frame edge. I'm going in exactly the same order that I did applying the stain. I'm going to use one last swipe through there to make sure I don't have any lines going the wrong way on it. Kind of start in the middle like you see me doing, so that you don't get a big blob of stain either at the bottom or the top. Get a little bit more stain on my plate. Using this way on my brush after I've gone this way can help to bring back out the areas that have already been put in there, the darker areas. And I also want to use the side of my brush going down this edge so I don't add more stain back into here. Have good light going across your surface so you know that you have covered all of it. And again, watch those lines. If you feel your brush starting to drag, you need to add more stain. But this is definitely a very thin coat because of how I'm putting next to nothing on the ends and then smoothing it out and using it This is also why you want this to dry 48 hours, because applying this coat over the previous two coats before it's had that dry time, you could reactivate the stain and undo all of the faux graining that you have created in it. You can also see there are no lap marks being created with how I'm applying this. It's not something you can start and stop on. You need to finish a whole section, which is why I'm going to go ahead and go down this entire door panel. And this got a little bit into my side piece here, so I'm going to wipe it off. And while it's still good and wet, a paper towel will easily take it off. Turning the brush over will give you stain that has been pushed through the bristles. Going back over that to lift some of it off, which is why I did the strokes up and down on this. Again, going this way with the brush helps to pull up some of the texture that's underneath. And thin out that coat of stain because you can get more pressure on the bristles going this way than this way. I'm going to let this completely dry, and once it's completely done, if I need to, I'm going to thin toasted oak 1-to-1 with mineral spirits and do a light glaze anywhere that I feel like the finish is not as even as I would like it to be. That way it'll be a super thin that I can feather out and not have any issues with. I'm happy with where this is going, but hopefully you can see it has blended that tremendously. The doorknobs I had painted with Iron Gate 3 years ago, and getting them off of the door left some paint on the edge of it from the door because I didn't take them off when I painted them all. So I'm going to clean that up, the edge of that, do touch up on that edge, and those will get reinstalled once we're sure the door is exactly where we want it to be. I did not do anything else to this door. I did fix the knob like I said we were going to, and it's now been reinstalled. Wait at least 24 hours, but 48 hours is much better to reinstall hardware on the knobs and all. I'm happy with the finish on this. If you wanted less of the light and dark on it, if you wanted to mute a little bit more of that, you cannot use the straight stain at that point. You have to cut it 1-to-1 with mineral spirits and then put a little bit on a chip brush, not the staining brush, and very lightly blend over, say, a place like this or here. I like the darks and light because wood has dark and light tones, but it's totally a personal preference. Also, if you wanted this door to have more of a gray tone to it, instead of toasted oak, you would use gray mist, and gray mist would pull it back with the tobacco to a grayer tone. And again, it's experiment with layering the stain to see what you like, what the color tone is that you want, and then always apply it in exactly those same steps. I'm happy with this. I'm ready to put it back into the house and start on the remaining hallway doors that I have. I literally used less than 5 tablespoons of toasted oak on this and less than 2 tablespoons of tobacco. I did not dilute any of them for this door. I thought I was going to have to, but I did not dilute any of the layers with the mineral spirits. But this, now I have a door that instead of gray has a wood look to it. So give it a try. It's not difficult, but it does take some practice to get a feel for how much stain you're putting on the brush and how you're applying it on the doors. And it does make a difference in how you apply it. The order in which I did it, of going along that frame first, then all of these pieces, then the center of the door, then the top across here, down here, doing the frame of this, doing the center of this, doing the middle down at the bottom, the middle here, and finally this piece keeps you from smearing your stain and the work you're doing. Also, if you have a plain door that has no lines, no grain lines on it anywhere, get a picture of a wood door so that you know these center panels go horizontal, these go vertical. These, even though they look like they're following that curve, it's part of this board, so the grain comes down this way. It's what makes the difference in a door looking as close as possible to wood and a door that looks strange because the grain lines are all going the wrong way. They can't all go up and down unless you have a flat door. If you have a flat door, yes, it would all go straight up and down. But anytime you have any framing, you have to create the direction, the proper correction of the grain, proper direction of the grain lines. So thanks for joining us and give it a try.